Which position groups for the Arizona Cardinals could surprise people in 2023? Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Cardinals, your team every day. Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day, free on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. So we're in that weird time. That little time, just like after Christmas and before New Year's, where it's like, what the hell day it is? What's my middle name? Do I go to work? What are we doing here? And it's kind of the same like that now with the Cardinals season. And we're kind of just in that dark zone, in that dead time. List season is just around the corner, training camp in a couple weeks. And then before we know it, football will be upon us. And as I was kind of, thinking about what to do for the rest of the week here, I knew that it was going to be future paced because this is going to be a lot about filling in the holes, answering the questions that are so bountiful pertaining to the future of this team, not only for the 2023 season, but for the actual future beyond this year. And I'm not talking about Kyler Murray. I'm not talking about Budda Baker, really. I'm just talking about which position group is going to be a strength of this team. Because as of right now, aside from Budda Baker, who's still on the roster, and Jalen Thompson, shoring up the safety room, Cardinals don't have a strength. I guess the honorable mention would be James Conner, the running back room. He's been solid when he's been on the field since signing with the Cardinals a couple years back. The tight end group, I guess, was Zach Ertz healthy, honorable mention. Trey McBride showed flashes towards the end of last season after Zach Ertz was out for the season with an injury. But that's grasping at straws. What is the strength of the Arizona Cardinals? TBD. And it could be to be determined beyond 2023. And when I talked on Monday about kind of the gauging of progress, the gauging of success in 2023 not being directly correlated to the win-loss and more in just the player development and growth of especially the young players who are playing a position of impact that the Cardinals just drafted, like Paris Johnson and B.J. Ojulari and Kazir White, who came over from Philly, Garrett Williams, etc. It's going to be in the abstract. And moving forward, the Cardinals are going to have positions of strength if they want to win. There you go. The dumbest sentence I'll say this week so far. And it led me to think, which position groups have a chance to surprise people in 2023? And yes, this is a middle of summer podcast. Guilty. And this also is a very important future-paced potential win for the Cardinals as we break this down. So with the draft going as it did, and Monty Austinford et al. Drafting an offensive lineman of need, a pass rusher, kind of everything linebacker of need, a corner of need, a wide receiver of need, an interior offensive lineman of need, a backup quarterback of need, a backup cornerback in Kentrell Clark towards the back end. Like, there are so many possibilities for 1, 2, 3 of those players to lead the charge in their respective position group. Which are the 3 position groups that have the best chance of surprising people in 2023? Again, devoid of any sort of correlation to win-loss, because that could be a fool's errand if we're going to compare things to the scoreboard in that way. The first is the cornerback room, the one that can surprise the most. We'll see what Marco Wilson can do in year 3. We'll see if Garrett Williams, if healthy in week 1, can come in and prove to be a steal of the draft. The dude can hit. The dude can smack wide receivers, running backs around. Just Google Garrett Williams college tape. And if he didn't get hurt during last season, he could very well have been a first-round pick. So a group that can surprise some people is a group that has been very underwhelming pretty much for the last decade, save Patrick Peterson during his peak years. There hasn't really been any sort of redeeming quality out of the cornerback room. It was a lot more Brandon Williams, running back out of Texas A&M, I think, who was the starting corner week 1 alongside Patrick Peterson a handful of years ago with BA calling the shots. It's just like, what are we doing here, guys? What is going on here? But if Marco Wilson can really take that step forward into the true bona fide CB2 role, and Garrett Williams can become a CB1 his rookie year, which isn't an unfounded thought. You know, Marshawn Lattimore did it. Marcus Lattimore did it. Jalen Ramsey did it. And Sauce Gardner did it last year. And I know those guys were higher draft picks, but I think that's the first position group that could really solidify themselves. I mean, could Catrell Clark play in the slot and play like if you watch his film in college, kind of surprising he dropped as far as he did. So with so much unknown in that room, it kind of grades on a curve where it's like, oh yeah, obviously there's a good chance that position group in the cornerback room could be the surprise because we have no idea what the hell it's going to be. It could completely crash and burn. Garrett Williams is not worth the pick. You know, he could be looked at as a third rounder and not a fringe first rounder if he wouldn't have got hurt last year. Obviously, there's so much left for interpretation. We're basing this, predicated upon boxes checked in college from the players drafted, but with zero certainty as to not only who, but what it will look like building out that cornerback room for not only 2023, but for the future. There's so much room for surprise. And I say this with positive surprise. Not, oh man, they're worse than we thought. Positive surprise going into 2023. Marco Wilson, I really think, is going to be the catalyst one way or the other. Can he come in, take that leap in year 3? We've seen flashes, and it's not just a pick 6 where he leaped through the air and did a somersault on Thursday Night Football against the Saints. He's shown flashes. Year 3 with a new head coach, a new defensive coordinator, and a lot less pressure to really perform except for contractually for him, but he's a 4th-round pick, so it's not exactly the same as, Isaiah Simmons. Could package into something pretty sweet. They could solidify him as the CB2 for the Cardinals with CB1 left open, and that will be Garrett Williams or it won't be. And it'll be a surprise or it won't in a positive way, fringing upon the production of Marco Wilson and Garrett Williams specifically. So that's the first one. There's 2 more. I'm going to hit them next. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel. Okay? Take your first swing at betting Major League Baseball on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets, up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll win $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you can spend betting on everything from the money line to the over/under to who you think is going to get the first home run. All on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you can get paid instantly. I mean, I don't think there's anything better than that. There's no better place to bet on Major League Baseball than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. Second segment, Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. Follow me on Twitter, Clancy's Corner. Please go subscribe the YouTube channel. Couple hundred away from 3K. Would love to get there before the start of the season. Thank you for being everydayers. People have been here for a long time. Thank you. If this is your first listen to Locked On Cardinals or first watch, thank you. It's gonna be a fun ride from here, hopefully in perpetuity, as the Cardinals try to turn this ship around and start winning more games than they lose in a more sustainable fashion than just trading for stars, giving up draft capital, and bloating the salary cap, which is what we've experienced over the last decade or so. So cornerback room is the position group that has the best chance to surprise people in 2023 for a couple of reasons. It's probably the biggest question mark. It's been a massive question mark. I think you can just put a period at the end of that sentence. Save Patrick Peterson, a year with Antonio Cromartie, but they haven't had a CB1, CB2, 1-2 punch in a long time. So I think that they're the biggest chance to have a surprise in 2023, because we'll see if Marco Wilson can step up. We'll see if Garrett Williams is as advertised when healthy coming out of Syracuse. It's going to be fascinating. Now, the second position group that has a big chance to surprise in 2023, and this is a little bit more rudimentary because Kyler Murray's not going to be there for a chunk of the season, is the offensive line. DJ Humphries played 8 games last year, I believe. He gave up no sacks. DJ Humphries is kind of an unsung hero of this roster. Is he the best left tackle in football? No. Is he top 15? Probably. Would you rather have a top 15 left tackle than a bottom 15 left tackle? Absolutely. Would you rather have a character guy like DJ Humphries or not have a character guy like DJ Humphries? Former. DJ Humphries is an Arizona Cardinal. I exclaim from the mountaintops that the Arizona Cardinals need as many quote-unquote Arizona Cardinals on this roster as possible. This is a transplant team and has been for a long time. DJ Humphries, drafted in 2015, the last offensive lineman that Steve Keim drafted in the first round, 2015, DJ Humphries. He's been there. The contracts haven't been gaudy. That's one of the beauties, one of the upsides of not having a Trent Williams left tackle. You don't have to pay hundreds of millions of dollars to keep him. He's had team-friendly deals. He's played fine. He's been a good leader. He's a great locker room guy. He's one of the best interviews in football. So you've got him playing Paris Johnson Jr.'s preferred position. But that's okay. The fact that the Cardinals have Paris Johnson Jr., easy for me to say, on the roster, is a win. You nestle him into left guard for next season, barring any sort of injury to DJ Humphries. You have Will Anderson at right guard, and you have, Kelvin Beachum as the bookend on the right side. Now, the flexibility here could be, if Kelvin Beachum becomes rotational, you can play Paris Johnson Jr. At right tackle and play Josh Jones at left guard, who played pretty well last year, even though they were during somewhat meaningless snaps because the season was going downhill. The best chance, the second biggest chance to surprise people is the offensive line, because there are 50 to 60 snaps a game where they're on display. And if they're playing poorly, everybody knows it. If they're playing well, everybody knows it. It's not like, wide receivers running routes, they don't get the ball thrown to them. Well, that was a great route run. Really shook them at the line. If you don't get the ball thrown to you, it doesn't matter. It's not, computable unless you're Pro Football Focus. But the offensive line has a very clear direction. Be better than last year in the interior. That's what it is. Because the least of the offensive line's problem has been the left and right tackle, respectively. DJ Humphries and Kelvin Beachum aren't the best in football, but they are far from bottom dwellers. They are far from the bottom third. Kelvin Beachum is one of the best free agency signings that Steve Keim made. I think it was 1 year, $2 million, his first contract. And then he got 2 year, $4 million. I mean, it's been an incredible run for Kelvin Beachum on the right side. Very unsung hero over there. Is he getting older? Of course. But what he's done is shored up the right side of the line a lot better than anybody else who tried before him in recent memory. So the best chance to surprise some people in 2023, this is obviously going to be Will Anderson in year 2, even though it's going to be not under Sean Kugler. Paris Johnson Jr. playing on the left side of the center. And whatever veteran they choose to play at center, or if they want to just roll John Gaines out there after, a full real training camp and preseason. But if Paris Johnson Jr. is as advertised, that can not only elongate DJ Humphries' career, Kyler Murray's career, but also make the offensive line's job as a whole lot easier if you have a powerhouse, regardless of where he's playing. And I know that the interior of the offensive line is kind of looked at like an off-ball linebacker, where it's not like a premium position, but it is. It is. I mean, obviously, every offensive line position is a premium position. It just shows how important having a center like Rodney Hudson is, not only for depth of pocket, but also to be able to chip when your interior offensive linemen to the left and right side of you aren't up to the level of an all-world center that Rodney Hudson was his first year here after getting traded for a third-round pick from Vegas. So if the Cardinals don't need one player to overcome the inferior play, I don't think that's necessarily fair. Justin Pugh played fine when he was here. It was a lot of injuries. If you can have every position in the offensive line position group play at an elevated level, it changes everything for Kyler Murray, whoever's playing quarterback for the Cardinals. So they're the second group that could surprise people the most in 2023 when we're looking for value and growth and success that's not directly correlated to win-loss. Because I feel it's a fool's errand to directly correlate it to such in a season that was so much in flux as 2023 as we transition, watching this Arizona Cardinals organization go, hopefully from dysfunctionality and perpetuity, with a fractured foundation being put together by Band-Aids and super glue, like what the last regime did, to an organization built the right way from the ground up. Could be step one. The offensive line is going to play an integral part of it. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. What is the final position group that could wow some people in 2023, surprise some people, where it looks to be a question mark right now? This one, not as much as the first two, but still a question mark nonetheless. I'll hit that as we roll on here. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Here's the thing. When it comes to the Arizona Cardinals, the position group, aside from the offensive line, that needs the most talent to maximize this working on the offensive side of the ball is the wide receiver group. It's like, well, there's only 4 positions or 5 positions on wide. So obviously, the wide receiver group can surprise some people this year. The only thing keeping Rondale Moore from being a fringe star in this league, at least as a wide receiver too, injuries in Cliff Kingsbury. If Rondale Moore is healthy, and we saw it, we saw the transformation from when Cliff Kingsbury realized last year that it's not against the law to throw the ball to Rondale Moore in a forward pass fashion, that in space the dude is special. He's fast. He's got good hands. He runs good routes. He's Steve Smithy and Tyreek Hill in the way that just because he's small doesn't mean he can't go up and get contested balls and find spots in zones or whatever it may be, whatever teammates they're playing against. The dude is special. He was a fantasy football darling during the first quarter to half of the season before injuries came in and before the Cardinals were rendered obsolete during the second half. With Hollywood Brown, this is the contract year. I am surprised. And I'll be the first one to say that I had this wrong as of now. I mean, we still got some time. I'm surprised that his agent isn't playing hardball and getting an extension done now. I'm genuinely surprised, because Hollywood Brown's agent also represents DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, Deebo Samuel, none of whom played the extent of their rookie scale contract with that option year before getting a contract extension first. So I hope that that's not going to be a thing. Hopefully this is a prove-it year for Hollywood Brown and you retain him. I can't help but think, and this is for down the road, it's either going to be Kyler and Hollywood Brown or neither Kyler Murray nor Hollywood Brown in 2024. I just can't help but think that that would be the course of action for a new regime that has no ties to either of them. But going into 2023, Hollywood Brown's going to have a chance, regardless of who the quarterback is, to show if he's a wide receiver 1 in this league. This is the breakout year possibility for Hollywood Brown if he's healthy. And I'll tell you what, during the first 6 weeks, giving up a first for Hollywood Brown and a third looked like a damn steal. Then injuries came in. Kyler Murray got hurt. Like that was it. But the first 6 weeks, it was like, oh, this is going to work. This is going to work. I mean, even in the blowout game against Kansas City in week 1, Hollywood Brown was like right back in Norman, Oklahoma. Immediately. And it'd be fun to keep him long term. You'd like there to be a wide receiver 1A, but the reason why in 2023 the wide receiver group could be a surprise is for the top 4 wide receivers. Hollywood Brown, we'll see if he can elevate to wide receiver 1 status. Rondale Moore, we'll see if he can play close to a full season and really put up numbers. If you told me at the end of 2023, if Kyler Murray played like 9 games or 10 games, that Rondale Moore was a 1,000-yard receiver, 100-catch, 1,000-yard receiver with 8 or 9 touchdowns, wouldn't be a shock. I mean, 1,000 yards receiving is like 65. We're just going to do it real time. 58 yards a game. 5 catches, 5.8 catches, 58 yards a game is a 1,000-yard receiver now. If you told me that he had those numbers with 7, 8, 9 touchdowns in 2023, you'd be shocked. No, it's got to be healthy. But the dude is absolutely incredible in space. He's so fast. He's so smart, so quick. He's got good hands like that. And then 2 players I haven't mentioned yet, Greg Dortch, who was brought back. Greg Dortch has been more productive than Rondale Moore because he's been available. He's been the most available. And he showed flashes last year where if he got targets, he produced. Then you have Michael Wilson, got the kid out of Stanford. 6'3", outside receiver. It's just like the cornerback room. It's like there's talent there, and obviously there's more talent in the wide receiver room than the cornerback room, if we're going to compare it directly. But if you told me Michael Wilson just went in and balled out, I would love to see the Cardinals be in a situation going into 2024 draft. And this is far, but like this would be obviously ideal. If we're going to speak idealistically with future pace potential wins here, it may as well be discussed. What if the Cardinals didn't need to draft Marvin Harrison Jr.? And I know that this is sitting on Santa's lap, thinking about that. But crazier things have happened than a 3rd-round wide receiver come in and be a wide receiver 1. All I hope is that the Cardinals have to think about drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. instead of just doing it if they have 2 picks in the top 5 next year. That would mean that this season was a success from the wide receiver room. And it also means that Kyler Murray probably played over half the season. But the Cardinals have, on offense as a whole, 18th best, 15th best position group skill set on offense. Running back, wide receiver, tight end. Maybe higher? Probably 15th. It's probably can't go much higher than that. You had Michael Wilson in there. I mean, Zach Pascal's going to be there. He's shown flashes in myriad places. Crazier things have happened. All we know going into 2023, and I've talked about this and I will continue to every podcast. Every day. This is going to happen every day. All the Cardinals need to achieve next year is to find, develop, and elevate young players on this roster to save them from having to draft for need in the top couple rounds of next season, where they can just draft for depth and strength of position. And if the cornerbacks, offensive linemen, and wide receivers can do their jobs and elevate and surprise some people in 2023, the Cardinals are going to be in a pretty good spot come the 2024 draft. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. I will talk to you on Friday.